with somebody. We went back and forth for like an hour. She just could not understand why she needs to eat more. She just kept saying, I'm worried I'll get fat. I'm worried. She was eating lean meat 97.3. Hey guys, thank you so much for supporting us and watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more and get some of our merchandise like this awesome apron, be sure to check out our website at thecarnivorerevolution.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and today my guest is Stephanie Person, who you may know as Stephanie Ketogenic on Instagram. She is an author, a speaker, a coach, and a YouTube host, and we are so glad that you're here today.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank you.
I've been following you for a long time, and you are such an inspiration. And for those of us that are the 50 and over crowd, who most of the time people kind of feel like they're over the hill at that point, and it's too late to start exercising. It's too late to get in shape. It's too late to do the things that we want to do. Like, we've missed the boat on that. And so I want to start with your story. I know you've been low carb for about 15 years now, right? 16 years. And so what did that look like for you? How did that come to be? What's your history like?
Well, it started with my mom having a glioblastoma. I had heard about ketogenic diets as anti-cancer diets years ago. So, when you're getting a stage 4 glioblastoma diagnosis, then it can't hurt. It wasn't just a keto diet. That's why I won't say, oh, that's what stopped her cancer. But it was we did a bunch of stuff. My brother and I, we did vitamin C infusions and sodium bicarbonate and apricot cores and a little bit of reefer or whatever, a bunch of stuff. And then my brother was trying to get her to do more the vegan thing, because they tell you to do that ridiculous thing is to not eat meat, so stupid, or keto. So at the end, he gave in and I started pushing keto and low carb. But at that juncture, I was having her do a lot of coconut oil and butter. They removed the glio, and then of course you cannot cut around the brain. So if one cell is left over, it's going to start to regrow, which is what it did. But then it just stopped. So now it's a lesion in her brain that hasn't grown in 16 years, just sits there. I got her to eat fairly clean, mostly keto for about 4 years. And then after that, start falling apart. Now it's atrocious. That's how I started. And I did it with her because she was trying to get my mother, mothers are stubborn. So trying to get her to just adopt a whole new lifestyle. She was so into baking cakes at that time. So to stop all of that and try to eat extremely healthy was so unusual for her. So I did it with her, and I was really paranoid that I was going to be tired at the gym and have no energy, because I'd always heard, as a person who lifts weights, oh, your brain needs glucose, all this nonsense, or can only survive on glucose. And so I did it, and my energy felt the same, but I was doing it wrong. I was eating 400 grams of fat, and some of it was butter, some of it was almond butter, some of it was coconut butter, some of it was coconut oil, and I was still crashing in the afternoon. And after after learning and working with tons of people, you start to refine what you do. You start to see what works in the video content and what I preach about and everything. My whole thing changed to what it is today. So that's the short of the long of it.
But before that, you were eating just like a normal standard American diet, or were you always a little bit healthy?
No, I mean, not really healthy, but healthier than the average person. I didn't like to eat a lot of sugar. I would crave it, but I would limit myself. So if I had a cookie, I would just have one cookie. And my mom used to make cookies all the time, and I would give myself 4 cookies for the entire evening. It would drive my brother insane. He's like, why are you doing that? Just freaking eat it. I was like, no, I can only have this much. Or I used to love Snickers bars, but I would cut it up into little quarters, and I would just have a little piece of it a night, or even less. And I would make a Snickers bar last 5 days. So I've never been overweight. So in that sense, does that make me healthy? Perhaps, because I didn't want to be overweight. But when it came to the standard foods, I was never a soda drinker or chips or anything like that. But I did have this cereal, and the muesli cereal with sugar dumped on it. I drank the orange juice with fructose and sugar in it. And so if I wasn't eating the blatant chips and things like that, I was still eating foods that were still high in fructose and carbs and sugar and garbage.
So the most interesting thing that I think that I have heard about you is that you used to be a professional skateboarder.
Yes. Nobody asked that. It's hilarious. It's so weird because I'm in the Smithsonian Institute, right? Yeah, I'm like, and it's like you're immortalized in this famous museum, yet the crowd of people that I mostly see me outside of the skateboard world have no clue that that was such a big part of my life. Yeah. First black chick skateboarder who kicked some butt back in the day.
That's pretty cool. So traveling all over the world doing that with Tony Hawk.
Yes, not over the world. Mostly, I started traveling around the world later, but like to Europe, Canada, things like that. Those are the places I really went. So yeah, with Tony, I did a TV show with Tony in Germany. Still trying to get the footage from that TV show because it was like that presenter or host of that show was like David Letterman of the US, right? So I'm still trying to get the footage of that where we're all on stage together because that's such a monumental thing. So back in the day when I used to skateboard, Tony Hawk was famous before he was famous. He was actually famous and dying out. Like, okay, so what? Tony Hawk, whatever, for a long time. And then it was like, oh my gosh, Tony Hawk. I was like, so what? But then you realize he's like did the 900, he did 720. These are twists in the air, and then a 900, and then he, was on a video game and all this kind of stuff. He was a very smart businessman. So then he became hyper famous.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what is your diet like now and what do you do now?
I do a ketogenic diet now.
So tell
Nope.
us about that. Tell us, so you've been keto, so so you've been keto for low carb for about 16 years. And
No,
how
no,
long of that was
keto.
no,
Keto.
oh, keto. Okay.
Yeah,
And so
no carbs. Yeah.
how long of that was carnivore?
9 months.
Okay. So what
9 months.
happened?
I had failing health, horrible electrolytes tanked massively. Remember, I've been doing this for years, not a year, not a 2 year, years and years and years. So your body becomes very good at losing fluids, very good. And it doesn't happen at once. I didn't even notice any issues with my electrolytes to the 5th year of doing keto, 5 years. Then when it came, it was like somebody hit me in the head with a baseball bat. So to go from that to carnivore, my electrolytes tanked because you can't get enough potassium from meat. I was eating avocado before, and the avocado went out on carnivore. And I was like, why do I feel nauseous? Why do I feel sick? Why do I feel terrible? Why do I have muscle aches? And lactic acid burn higher than I've ever had before. Like my energy didn't shift because I made it a high fat. I knew that carnivore should always be high fat. It's almost virtually the same diet, except for a few things. I also realized that after eating cruciferous vegetables for years and avocados, that when I tried to eat those again after 9 months and I didn't have any vegetables, I was like, oh my God, my stomach is like ginormous, just strict carnivore. And then they try to eat plants that they used to. And now their diamine oxidase, which deals with histamine, has lessened. They're not in ketosis. Their adrenals are overtaxed. Their hair starts falling out. They start having thyroid issues on carnivore because everybody's eating too much protein. As much meat as possible, not even factoring in the fact that you're losing fluids like hemorrhaging fluids, right? So it's called a carbohydrate. For every gram that a carb that you eat, your body holds on to 2.8 and up to 4 grams of water. Once you start to dump fluid via the kidneys, it just doesn't stop. You just water out, you're peeing all the time. It's a whole nother thing. You have to be on top of your electrolytes, and eating a bunch of meat and eating too much meat, being dehydrated, and then starting to have a low GFR, which is your glomerular filtration rate, which the rate at which your kidneys can filter out these protein byproducts. People are eating an exorbitant amount of protein. It's illogical. You can't get energy from protein. You either have to be in ketosis or you have to eat carbs. You're not going to get stored glycogen in the muscle from eating a bunch of meat. So that's why people started having issues. That's why I never ate a bunch of protein. I always knew the wiser not to do that. But the electrolytes and the bloat after, then I started learning.
So what do you think about the higher fat version of carnivore, like for people? So for instance, I'm doing the Lion diet for the month of July. So I'm just eating red meat for the month of July. I did it in January and I felt great, had my blood work afterwards and it was good. And so today I woke up though and I felt like I need more fat. And so I added some butter to it. You just keep shaking your head no.
No. Yeah, I'm honest. Like, I'm not a person like, what does someone feel great? People don't know what feels great anymore. Like, if somebody comes and works out, I had an interview once with this woman. She's like, I love fasting. It's amazing. I have so much energy. And I said, okay, you're in Cali. I'm in Cali. You're about an hour drive. Let's go work out together. And I said, we'll do nothing but pull-ups. and we'll see if you're fasting to the energy that you say that you have. And she was like, but I don't know how to, I'm not good at pull-ups. I said, well, let's do push-ups then. Well, I mean, okay, well, let's do dips on dip bars and let's do a full hour of it. So perception of reality can be sometimes subjective. Blood work. What does blood work mean? Blood work changes. You do a thyroid test, and the thyroid test is entering the cells. You just can't. What are people getting their insulin checked? Are they getting their A1C checked? Like, what was your A1C?
Oh, I can't remember now. 5.1 maybe the last time I had it checked.
That's too high. That's blood sugar up in the 90s. A 5.1 blood sugar is too high to be ketotic, but it's not diabetic. You're not in diabetes. You don't have diabetes. Something. Why did Paul Saladino start eating fruit? Because his health started tanking, eating strict carnivore.
Interesting. So it was a lot higher than that last year when it was checked, or the year before that, it was higher than that. And it's gone down steadily both years. I'm not 100% sure that it was 5.1. If that was this year or last year, I would have to double check on that. But I do have a glucose monitor. And this morning it was 79. And my ketones were like 1.5 this morning.
Okay. So those aren't bad ranges, but ketones and glucose do not stay steady throughout the day. Have you tested your blood sugar 2 hours after a meal?
I have, and it goes back down like it should.
To what number?
Usually close to where it was before I ate. So it depends on where it was before I ate. Your
high is not 79, or else your A1C would not be in the 5s. So, and you can't go, it's gone down from the years in the past. You have to think for low carb. If you're not eating carbs, your A1C should not be in the 5s.
Right. I'll have to check it and see what it was. I wish I could run downstairs right now and check it.
Okay. How long have you been carnivore for?
A little over 2 years.
Yeah. What do you have for breakfast?
Usually about on a higher fat day, I try to do really high fat, like 85%, 90%. That's really how I feel really good after.
Let's take away the percent. Let's tell me the grams.
I don't know the grams. I just do percentage. I know.
You could do high fat on 80% of 1,000 calories. So.
Well, my calories are typically close to 2,000 when I track, but I don't really pay attention to the grams. I just pay attention to the percentage on my graph.
Opposite, I would pay attention to the grams.
To the grams instead?
Yeah, percentages are subjective. But go ahead. I don't want to take over. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. But I usually, so like for breakfast, I'll have like 5 egg yolks with 1 whole egg and like 6 strips of really fatty bacon. Do you hear an echo?
That's a lot. Wait. Do you
hear an echo?
No.
Hang on. I have a little bit of an echo.
Let me make sure I'm on my Wi-Fi. Yeah, I am.
As long as you don't hear it, I'm probably fine.
I don't hear any echo.
I wonder if it's where I got this.
And you hear an echo, I will be echoing.
Okay, it's me that's echoing. Oh wait, it went away.
Okay.
Say something.
Something.
I think it went away. Okay, I think it was where I got so far away from my phone. So what were you going to say? Why so much?
No, yeah, you're eating how many eggs?
1 yolk and 1 whole egg and 4 or 5 yolks.
Okay, so 5 yolks, that's 10 grams of protein plus 1 whole egg, that's 16 plus how many strips of bacon?
The thick cut bacon, I usually eat, 5 or 6 of those.
Do you check to see how many grams of protein per bacon?
I don't. I just watch the percentage at the end of the day. I know. And
Continue. I don't want to take over.
No, that's okay. I'm a coach too, but I just tell people the percentages. I don't tell them the grams. So I wonder if we should. I don't know why I have this.
Who are you coaching?
Myself for the Carnivore Revolution. Yeah. I was Rivera certified, but I never did join because that's Sean Baker. That's Meat RX. Yeah. So I was Rivera certified, but I never did it for him because there's a non-compete.
Terms. You were uneducatedly certified by Baker's ideology.
I know. But I finished the class and I passed, but I never got that official certification because there was a non-compete and I didn't want to be under
that language like it's some real course. Okay.
Yeah, I know. But I thought it would help me in the carnivore community to coach people. But it didn't matter. Nobody ever asks. Kelly Hogan doesn't even have a certification.
Neither do I.
Yeah, right. I mean, you go by experience. And so typically the people that I help the most are people who are under eating. Those are the people that I can help the most. People that are doing what I did in the beginning. I gained 18 pounds by under eating and fasting too much in the beginning. So those are the people that I like. That's my language there is, why are you only eating 1,000 calories every day? Every day people will say, I don't.
Careful with percentages, because people with eating disorders will say I'm eating my percentages, but they don't actually eat 200 grams of fat.
Right. Okay. Even with the percentage, that if I tell them eat 2,000 calories, that still works, doesn't it?
For a woman, yeah. 2,000
Okay.
to 2,500. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's usually what I tell people. And I have women that are, 200 pounds that are eating 1,200 calories. You get the same thing, I'm sure. So yeah. So those are the people that I speak to. I'm like, let me help you with this, because you're clearly not eating enough. And that just happened the other day with somebody. We went back and forth for like an hour. She just could not understand why she needs to eat more. She just kept saying, I'm worried I'll get fat. I'm worried. She was eating lean meat, 97.3 ground beef, and not adding butter to it.
Get some kidney pain right there. Get some
I
gout.
know. I was like, ever heard of rabbit starvation? Like, you are going to get sick. You need a lot more fat than that. And she was trying to have a baby. I was like, you're never going to, but she raised her calories at one point, but she was still eating that kind of ground beef. But she didn't have her period back. And I was like, that's why. You can't get your period back if you're not eating fat. People just don't get it. Okay. All right. So I don't even remember where we were. So what does your diet look like now? I know you're not really doing the carnivore diet anymore. You're still keto. So what does your diet look like now?
Okay, so I coach the carnivore diet, and I teach people how to do it properly so they don't injure themselves. And the reasons why they do it are very, very important, because people do the carnivore diet expecting some kind of magical weight loss, and my eczema is gonna just heal up, and they're eating meats that they're reacting to, and it's not that black and white. But what I eat is, I get up and I always have a breakfast. I don't do that fasting, absolute absurd nonsense. Now, if you don't have time to do a full meal and then run off to work out. So I used to get up and eat a breakfast and then digest, completely empty out my stomach, and then go to the gym. So I would be working out fasted. But because I live out there in the country and I'm doing everything moving from LA to Tennessee, it doesn't work like that. So I go in and have something small. I'll have 2 yolks and 2 tablespoons of fat, or I'll have 2 ounces of liver with 2 tablespoons of fat, or I'll have a couple pieces of pork belly bacon, and then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll come back and actually sit down and eat and digest and rest. So then when I have a full meal, I'll have any one of these meats. I'll have ground beef, or I'll have lamb, or I'll have fish, or I'll have pork. A lot of pork lately. And then I'll go and put like 8 tablespoons and 8, 9, 10 tablespoons of fat on the plate and gobble it all down. That's what I do to start.
Love it.
Throughout the day, I graze on fatty things. So I'll cook a bunch of egg yolks. I'll pre-cook egg yolks, or I'll do pork belly. And I have really fatty cuts of pork belly, almost pure fat. And I'll go and air fry it, and I'll just snack on it. I'll snack on it every 3 hours. And then around a lunchtime, I'll have about 2 to 3 ounces of meat. And then I'll have another 4 tablespoons of fat. And then in the afternoon, I'll just keep snacking on pure fat, or a fatty meat, or some egg yolks. And then I'll have dinner around between 5 and 6, which would mirror like any main meal, where I'd have about 4 ounces of protein, 4 to 4.5, sometimes 5, but mostly 4 to 4.5, sometimes even 3. And I'll do probably 4 to 6 tablespoons of fat on the plate. And I'll have avocado throughout the day, just whenever, however, at least 1 or 2 avocados a day.
So that sounds a lot like carnivore plus avocado.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I could go out to like a restaurant and order a steak with asparagus, for example. But that's not happening very often. But if I do, I will have cruciferous vegetables, but on the daily, not very often.
So a few minutes ago, when you were talking about carnivore eventually causing issues for people, the change that you made was adding avocados back in, and that's enough?
Fiber.
Very interesting. Okay, so what are your macros like?
The gut microbiome stabilizes because it can attach to prebiotic fiber. When you're only having meat, that bacteria gets out of balance. That's why people get bloated when they eat plants again. Right? Their gut weakens, their diamine oxidase lowers. This is an antihistamine that the intestines, the thymus, and the kidneys make. So if you keep a little bit of fiber in, or have cruciferous vegetables here and there, one time a day or every other day, a little bit, that's enough to keep the bacteria in balance in your gut, in your small and large intestine.
So what are your macros like now? Do you count macros, and what does that look like for you?
I don't count anything anymore, but I can just tell you what they are. I eat between 200 and 260 grams of fat. And what makes me go up to 260 grams of fat is just being addicted to fat. I just love it. My protein, I'm 5'3", so my protein is between 55 and 65 grams of protein a day. And my carbs are like, who cares? Because you don't count the carbs in avocado because of the fiber, and the fat slows down the rate at which glucose enters the bloodstream with the total carbohydrates in an avocado. So you don't have a glucose spike if you don't have a histamine reaction to the avocado.
And so what about ketosis? Like, what do you think about being in ketosis and whether or not that's good for you and all that stuff?
Being in ketosis this many years is like being a superhero until you're not. So when I moved from Texas, because I got out of Cali, it was the Titanic. Y'all know the Titanic, where it sunk. So I got out of California, and then I went to Texas. I thought, oh, I'm going to be a Texas. People like love their, state and their community and all this kind of stuff. And they got iron on the side and all this. And then it was awful. I was like, oh, this is really bad. So when I left to come to Tennessee, all this stuff that happened, I was stuck in Texas because I have all these animals, and it's not just easy just to move. If I didn't have any animals, I would have stayed in Texas about 2 days and then would have left. But instead I stayed 1.5 years. And so when I finally got to Tennessee, I was so stressed out, like the guy who's delivering the animals and the RV camper and all this kind of stuff, like flaked and overcharged and blah, blah, blah. And so when I finally got here, I was fully out of ketosis, blood sugar, like over 100 daily, hypoglycemic, felt like garbage, doing videos and consultations, like wanting to fall asleep. And this has happened a few times before when I get incredibly stressed. I can't stabilize my blood sugar. And it took me almost 2 months to not like do an interview like this, not be like, So once you go from that the dysglycemic blood sugar dysregulation back into ketosis, you're just like, oh, I feel fantastic. I feel even. I feel energized. My brain is lit. I'm feeling strong at the gym. I'm feeling like my skin is all nice and happy and like soaked with fat. And it's just a really good feeling. Now, I've done this diet for so long, I can tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's all three sides of it. It's not all perfect. Like gurus are like, oh, it's so amazing. No, it's not.
So a few minutes ago, you kind of poo-pooed fasting. So tell me what you think about fasting and why you don't recommend it.
Now, fasting is just the modern day anorexia. That's all. It's just people obsessed with diet. They all say they're doing it for the autophagy benefits and to access brown fat or to fix their autoimmune issues, but you actually don't. We are not hunter-gatherers. And so hunter-gatherers, if we beamed a hunter-gatherer from today, I mean, from the past to now, they would be laughing at us. Okay, wait, you haven't eaten anything and you're doing fasted cardio. Like, why? Just why? Like, eat. Food is thy medicine. Food has the electrolytes in it. It's got minerals in it, and it has energy. It's not entertainment. It is to nourish the body. So why would you not eat it? It's illogical. Illogical. We don't have the same gut wall as a hunter-gatherer. Our microbiome is trashed. Our bodies are toxic. Our fat cells are toxic. We're breathing in heavy metals and pesticides and chemicals and garbage, and the body does not function like it should in nature. We are constantly exposed to Wi-Fi and blue light and all of this kind of stuff. So then when you try to fast, the body's like, but wait, you're supposed to rest. You're supposed to like sit in a hammock and read a book and be communal and get your breathing and get your feet in the soil and connected to the ions and the electrons in the soil. And so we're not. We're using it as a way to lose weight, but we sit there and use the cover of autophagy. And people are not in ketosis when they're fasting. They're not getting enough. Now, if you're fasting and doing carnivore with too much protein, now your electrolytes are really tanking hard. Your hair starts falling out. You start getting crepey skin, dark circles under your eyes, and you're wondering why you don't have the energy, but you're not hungry. You're not hungry because, I can do these extended fasts because, well, where are you getting your energy from? Food is gasoline. If you're not eating, where are you getting your energy from? Well, you're getting it from amino acids, protein in your skin, and the collagen under your skin. So you see people age exponentially fasting. They start developing crepey skin because if you look at a long distance runner, they're all thin and like scrawny looking. And if you look at a sprinter that's only running up to 400 meters, they're muscular because they run until the body starts going into gluconeogenesis, which is glucose. Neo means new, genesis to create. You're creating blood sugar out of amino acids in the body rather than fatty acids, and you're not experiencing lipolysis. Once you start having a damaged, toxic body, the body holds on to fat because it doesn't understand the modern human and all this garbage that we've created around us, all these toxicities and bad thinking and way of experiencing reality and not using our bodies for anything. And so our bodies become incredibly toxic. And then when you fast, the body thinks that you're running from a lion. It only knows stress. It doesn't understand that you've got food right there, that you're actually just trying to lean out a little bit, clean up your body and get the inflammation down. It doesn't understand that. So it starts freaking out. It starts the cortisol from the cascade of cortisol driven from your adrenals starts to raise blood sugar to stabilize your energy because no food is coming in these long hours while you're doing a bunch of stuff by breaking down amino acids. And that's why people look like they age 5 years in a year of fasting. I see it every time.
So what do you think about somebody who is already fat adapted that might actually be doing it for autophagy purposes and actually tapping into their fat instead of burning protein for fuel? No?
Nonsense. We're so easily duped by trends. If you're still everything I just mentioned, EMF toxicity, pesticides, traffic, how you use your spine, how to use your body, how do you sit, how's your organs going, how is your thyroid, are you getting enough nutrients for the thyroid? If they're already fat adapted, are they? Everybody says I feel amazing and they're fat adapted. When I started interviewing and talking to certain people, like let's say Carnivore Yogi, for example, like she interviewed me like you did. I've had a lot of people interview me and then eventually kind of blow up. And she was like, behind the camera, she was like, oh my God, my kidneys hurt. My thyroid's flaring up. I gained a bunch of weight. And I was like, girl, you are not eating enough fat. You're eating all that protein. That's why your kidney filtration rate is so low. And she's like, she didn't know. You have a couple benefits doing a carnivore diet and you don't see what's going wrong. You can't. Like Sean Baker showed his, like I like Sean Baker, don't get it wrong. Like he's a cool dude. He interviewed me for Meat RX. He's super chill. I like his stances on reality in the world and all that kind of stuff. But he showed his blood work. And I mean, people called him out. Like his A1C was apparently in the 60s. Like, or sorry, 6 point somethings, the A1C, and his hemoglobin A1C. And I was just like, he felt fine. He thought, he could have been shredded. But what's going on when your A1C's in the sixes? Some metabolic issues going on. So I just don't listen to people say that you can't measure autophagy. How do you know if you're experiencing autophagy?
You can't. There's no way to measure autophagy, right?
Yes, that's a bunch of nonsense.
Interesting. Okay, so now let's talk about building muscle without carbohydrates.
I just triggered half your audience.
No.
No.
It's okay. The truth.
I'm just old.
The truth is, I did start fasting recently. I fasted in the beginning of carnivore. I was fasting every other day, because everybody was talking about fasting. So I thought it goes along with carnivore. So I fasted Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And on my eating days, I literally was eating like 2 hamburger patties with a little bit of cheese and butter on them. And I gained 18 pounds in 8 months. And I kept doing it. I kept coming back for more. I kept doing it every week. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This will work eventually, I thought. But I did start incorporate fasting again recently, just a couple of times a week. I have a post-COVID issue where things taste and smell rotten. And so I was kind of hoping that maybe it would help with that.
No, you need to do a detox.
Well, before I even started carnivore, I did a 5-day water fast and it did fix it, but it only stayed for 2 days and then it went back again.
I don't mean that kind of by not eating. The food is not the issue. When you get poison in your body, that's all that was.
So how would you, what?
C word. People can't stand when I talk like this. I talked to my uncle today. He's like, I gotta go. And I'm like, why do you have to go? Can't we have a debating subject? Can you explain to me how I don't make any sense?
No, I gotta go. This was a great interview. Bye-bye. No, just kidding.
No, I don't believe, why are the Amish fine? Oh, they don't have a television. Oh, what about homeless? I'm sorry. I lived in Hollywood. Like, they didn't just keel over and die off. I'm saying everything without saying it because, you're interviewing me. If you have problems with your taste and smell, you better check about being poisoned.
Interesting. That's interesting. Because I lost it completely for about 3 months. And when it came back, things smelled and tasted like a rotten skunk. It's just the worst. It's the worst thing. And
there's a lot of professionals that are not having a voice. It's been taken away. And because people use the Google, that's where they get their information from. And they can put whatever they want on there. They can say there's aliens. They can say whatever they want. And nobody would question anything because they must, you just don't question things. We've really become complacent. And you can see that within the carnivore community. People eating like 2 pounds of beef, absolute absurdity, absurd. And people who are already having issues with uric acid or having histamine responses because they're eating 2 pounds of beef because somebody said that eating non-organic red meat is much better than eating the standard American diet. And people are shoving mono foods, which is what it does, which is a lack of diversity down their gullet. And so, when you start to see all of the misnomers and all of the hyperbole and all of the just the garbled, nonsensical things to start fasting and eating tons of meat. And then they're saying things like, well, if you're not pooping, it's because, you're using all of the meat. That is illogical. The body has to extract a certain percentage of food for nutrients. The rest must be eliminated. If you're not pooping, something's wrong. But then they start saying, no, you're just using, and I mean, doctors were saying, you're just using up all the meat, like just awful stuff. Then everybody becomes confused. People are desperate to be healthy. And this is what's happening in our world today with every damn subject. Like, it's scary. Like, oh, I lost my taste and smell. So then you think it's what everybody says. Oh, it's the C. No, it's not. It's so easy to get people to acquiesce and to go along with something without questioning. Do your research. I did a video in the beginning, like 3 years ago, when all this nonsense started. I did a video saying, like, wash your hands. They were saying to wash your hands for 30 seconds and then use that Purell soap or antimicrobial thing. But I already knew that was like very estrogenic, and we're trying to get away from xenoestrogens in our environment. And because it's very cancer causing to have too much estrogen domination and a lower of progesterone. And so I was like, what's better is to just use lemon soap. I was like, Trader Joe's has a lemon soap, and you put citric acid on your hands, and then that's going to kill pathogens and bacteria. And then that video got up on it. And I was like, oh, now I'm not going to believe anything you say. Now I'm going to do my research and do the opposite and find other things. So that's what I do with carnivore. When I think about the carnivore diet or fasting, like you said, you're a typical example. I'm fasting, I'm doing it X amount of days per week, and my weight's shooting up. How is that possible? Dr. Fungus said that it's supposed to moderate your blood sugar and lower your insulin. Why would you be gaining weight? So the audience becomes very confused, and you can take this on any subject like veganism or keto or any radical new trend, and people willy-nilly go and do it and don't look at their individual health and see what their body can actually handle. So are they going through autophagy? No. Are they going through gluconeogenesis? 99.9% yes.
Okay, so let's talk about building muscle without carbohydrates and what that's like, because so many people, many people say it's impossible to build muscle without eating, X number of carbohydrates. I know. So let's talk about that. How do you build muscle?
It's another lie. So you get people who are like anti-carnivore, anti-keto without context. I think carnivore is a great tool for taking down inflammation or fasting for a very short amount of time to take down like immediate inflammation. But then like long term, we got to look at that as potentially problematic in a high level, at a high level. Now with keto, what you're driving is ketosis, which means now you're using units of fat as energy, converted into acetoacetate and acetyl-CoA and acetoacetate, getting into the Krebs cycle, the energy cycle of your body, getting into cells and feeding your cells with energy from ketones all over the body. And so now you don't need, like in nature, we would only get about, if you're not eating honey, right? Or a fig that's about to drop, right? Because that's matured, it's more sweet when it's about to die, right? Because a very sweet fruit that's wild in nature would be destroyed and obliterated by insects if it were sweet. Like our oranges and mangoes and all these things have been genetically Frankenstein to be more sweet, and then you got to spray them with a bunch of chemicals because they in nature they're very bitter. So you're thinking, well, what kind of food can I consume as a hunter-gatherer that would spike my blood sugar that high? And that would be honey. And then you have to divide that between a tribe of people, and you're not going to get a lot because it's very dangerous to climb really, really high to get some honeycombs out of a tree without being stung to death or falling to the ground. So in nature, there's a lot of berries that grow worldwide, or wild spinach. And especially with wild spinach, if you take that, for example, you're going to get about a big bowl of it. You're going to get about 4 grams of total carbohydrates, if that, 2 to 4 grams of carbohydrate. And that is easily matched by insulin, 1 to 1. Boom, boom. Easily get that glucose out of the blood before it starts doing the thing called advanced glycation end product, which is the damage of the protein lining of cells and damages the cells. So all the little jobs that one cell does, one at a time, those action potentials start dying. You start aging or start having issues. So when you get into ketosis, you don't have that need for bolus amounts of vomiting insulin to take care of blood sugar because you ate some Frankenstein fruit or some carbs. Your body doesn't have to deal with that because, a wild plant or tuber is going to be so fibrous that the glucose spike is going to be so low, that the insulin spike is going to be so low that you develop a thing called insulin sensitivity. That means that you only need a little tiny bit of insulin to do a massive job, which is to deliver energy into cells or to deliver amino acids, which is protein, into the muscle so they can grow. So now your muscles can grow with adequate amount of protein delivered into the cell without the damaging effects of high blood sugar that does a thing called advanced glycation or glycation of the cells. You don't have your cells damaged at the same time as having high blood sugar and trying to get those amino acids into the muscle cell through eating a bunch of protein. That's how you grow muscle, is because you become insulin sensitive, and the delivery of protein becomes very easy into the muscle when you're insulin sensitive. Thus, the requirement for protein drops for the muscle.
Hang on, let me turn off my Wi-Fi and turn it back on. Your sound just got kind of funky. Okay. Say something. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. So, and one of the things people don't realize, I think, since we were talking about carbohydrates, is that most of the fruits and vegetables that we have now that are in our grocery stores didn't exist hundreds of years ago. And and most of those are either man-made or they're genetically modified, and that makes them not natural. So people go to the grocery store and say, oh, I'm eating whole foods or I'm eating natural. And the truth is most of that stuff is not natural, nor is it a whole food.
All of it is. Your vegetables and fruits should look absolutely ugly as frack. They should be mutated and busted and ugly. That's a non-pesticide natural plant. Not natural, because you still get the seeds are selectively bred and hybridized. But yeah, everything should look pretty busted, and it does. It looks perfect. So don't even get me started with that new brand, that sticker that's like coming out in California now that you can see in all your grocery stores. That's coated with all of that ridiculousness. We just getting started.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Really, really crazy. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is getting old, because we are both what a lot of people would consider getting old. I'm 50, you're 55. And we talked about this before we started recording. I feel like I'm aging backwards.
Awesome.
And you look and feel like you're aging backwards.
Well, of course. Yeah, I feel good. It's been a lot of work though. It's not like you do these diets and then poof, the magic dragon. You're like, fantastic. There's a lot of discipline involved in a low carb diet because there's so many potential for problems. like not getting into ketosis, having blood sugar dysregulation, having your electrolytes go out of whack. Those are really problematic, serious things. But if you can be disciplined and not cheat and don't eat your fruit and don't eat the carbs and stick with keto, because every time you eat something that has a lot of fructose or glucose in it or sugar, you're gonna have the body's not gonna know how to get back into ketosis or even to get to ketosis, because our bodies have become addicted to using glucose. That's why we are like cortisol driven, gluconeogenesis slathered in glucose with high blood sugar. You can have high blood sugar without eating a drop of carbs or sugars. So if you can be disciplined and be patient and love yourself, then you will eat good.
And so what about
yourself and circadian rhythm, put your feet in the dirt and be a strong person and stop being self-deprecating and love thyself.
and so what about menopause? Has that happened for you yet?
Yeah, it's happening now.
And so what are your symptoms like? How are you feeling?
I feel amazing. I was like worried about losing muscle. I was really worried about my body fat percentage shooting up, but now we're good. I mean, my body's remained intact. So basically, when you go through menopause, you must protect your adrenals. So I get worried sometimes because moving from Hollywood, California, and acquiring a horse and then another horse and 2 donkeys on 10 acres with nothing on it, no water, no power, no nothing, by yourself in a town where you don't know anyone, that can put a stress on you that is massive. So, I mean, just before the interview, I'm like, hold on, the package is coming in. Hold on a second. So I do get worried about putting my body under too much pressure, because right now it's under a lot of demand and pressure to get like a house built and all this kind of stuff. So, and then I'm doing a challenge. I'm doing an online challenge, and I want it to be perfect. And so the stress of that, and as you know, chasing the stupid social media garbage where these channels make you do all of these jumping through hoops to get like 2 more subscribers. It's absolutely absurd what they do. It's like, I'm just like, oh my God, those YouTubers, it's so easy. You just go there and make a couple videos. Oh no, you a slave to your device, slave. But I digress. Yes, aging backwards means protecting your adrenals. So if you don't want to go through horrible menopausal symptoms, that means that you have to get enough of the nutrients. So basically, when your ovaries burn out, your adrenals take over, and you can still build muscle, and you can still have enough testosterone to want to have the hokey pokey and have sex and have a sex drive. And you know, the fluid in your vaginus is going to go down if you're not constantly having sex. That's going to shrink. But as far as just like energy levels not becoming so dominant, because estrogen is the one hormone that our body can make in fat cells, and it just signals body to make more fat. And that's why so many women start gaining weight past menopause. They don't realize that estrogen just goes berserko. So if you can moderate your hormones through your adrenal system, have enough blue light exposure and learn how to use your body, because working out resistance training is going to help growth hormone, the release of growth hormone to keep your muscles intact in the menopausal symptoms that are.
So what's one piece of advice you would give to anybody who wants to get healthier and wants to build some muscle and who wants to be more like you?
Be disciplined. People go into this wanting to lose weight. They're like, when I did keto years ago, they're like, okay, because the whole thing was like, you do keto, you eat high fat, you just magically lose weight. And then people would gain weight. And they're like, I'm gaining weight. I thought you're supposed to lose weight. And I'm like, well, your blood sugar's too high. You're not in ketosis. I don't care if your numbers look good. You're not in ketosis. A1C, check your insulin, A1C. Right? You can do that glucose thing, and that is great. It is a great gauge of blood glucose, ketones, and glucose. But if your A1C, if your insulin is too high, then that's showing that blood sugar is not stable. It's not blood sugar. Continuous glucose monitors are not accurate enough to really show a picture of blood sugar, a real true picture of blood sugar. It just shows the health. So my advice: talk with yourself. Like, why are you doing this? If you're doing it to lose weight, you're not going to. You're gonna lose the wrong kind of weight. You're gonna lose muscle. You're gonna lose water. You're not gonna balance your hormones if you become too obsessed with loss. This is a lifestyle that you must do forever. When I go to a restaurant, when I travel, my old videos, you see me travel all around the world, like all these and I'll make food for 3 days. Anybody who tries to pressure me into eating carbs or sugars, they're gonna get a fast. I don't care if I'm in freaking jungles of Cambodia. I don't care if I'm deep in the, off somewhere in Africa. I don't care. People thought I was crazy. I bring notes. If I go out to eat, I go, do not add any sugar to this. And they go like, because I'm a diabetic, I'll just say I'm a diabetic. I'm not. I do that just are you going to be that strict? Work out 6 days a week. You can't just eat a diet and expect you have to unplug from reality. We're living in a fake world. Everything's fake. Perception, everybody fighting over these topics these days. You have to disassociate yourself from everything. Find the inner calm and peace in yourself, and then you got to act like you're training for the Olympics. That's how you beat all these hormonal fluctuations. The mind is so connected to the body. Connected, everybody just wants to do like a recipe, like add some water, add some powder, stir, mix. Why aren't I having a little miracle? All I need to do is jump in an ice bath and drink this protein shake fast, or do it, or eat 2 pounds of meat. And then like these gurus aren't being honest. They're not being honest about like what they're actually experiencing, or they're under eating, or whatever they're doing. Like, oh, I mean, like, oh my god, nonsense. And the men too. So I'm the person, some people tell me something, and I'm like, fasting, we can't measure autophagy. Exactly. Look at your body. What are you, are you metals? Diet alone? What kind of makeup do you use? What kind of deodorant do you use? Like, what type of laundry detergent? I learned this when my mom went through cancer. Like, oh my God, you gotta look at everything. What color are your clothing dyed? Is products? Everything, why the body is misfiring. Lead will just lead to all types of cellular malfunction. Cat mouth fillings in your mouth, if you take birth control pills or any type of medication. And so that's why I said the discipline. Because those things that I just mentioned.
Yeah, it's hard. We absolutely have to look at everything because our toxic load is so heavy, and all of that stuff that you just said can make such a huge difference for us. So, Stephanie, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank you for the interview. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And we'll see you guys next time here on the Carnivore Revolution.